All right, good morning, everybody. So I wanted to show you, now that I have all my coats on this, how to do some overlapping, some kind of fun little like galaxy glaze drippy kind of things. So you want to kind of look and see, like if you Google on the internet, the Potter's Choice glazes, like you can find a lot of pictures where it shows how they look when they've overlapped. For me, on my thing here, I've got my obsidian, and now I'm gonna be adding on some indigo float. Actually, let me check and make sure. No, yes, I'm gonna do indigo float. Okay, so I'm gonna be doing indigo float on the outside. I'm gonna do it this far. Because remember, the outside, we don't want it to drip all the way to the kiln shelf. So I'm only gonna go about this far on the outside with the PC23, and I'm gonna do 2 really good coats, okay? On the inside, I can go farther, because if it drips on the inside, it's just on the inside. I mean, you don't want it to be like crazy down there, but like it'll be fine for the most part. So like if you wanna go that far on the inside, that's okay. But on the outside, you just want to kind of stick to like the top third, okay? So make sure, hold the lid on, make sure the lid's closed, shaky, shaky. Still have my newspaper, still have my banding wheel, everything's dry, right? And since I have my newspaper, cleanup's gonna be like hecka easy. And I also have my freshly cleaned damp paintbrush. So now, usually when I'm doing this kind of stuff, like I'm gonna show you the outside because it's easier for you to see, but it's the same process on the inside, just it's on the inside. All right, so I tend to hold my glaze when I'm doing this so I can have it drip less on the outside. So I'm just gonna brush it on there and see, there it goes dripping again, that's okay. And remember, if it starts to get brushy, then it's not thick enough. I'm gonna get my brush kind of a little bit. There we go. I kind of made my brush a little brushier. Now, if it drips a little bit, that's okay. If that drip went all the way down to the bottom, not okay. All right, so if it starts to get brushy, remember, just go back and get more glaze. And even if it doesn't drip like this, it's still gonna mix with the glaze under it, and this particular combination is gonna flow. It is gonna move, okay? So it is important that it stays kind of high up on the cup, okay? All right, here we go. Whee! All right, so now I wanna let that, I'm gonna go ahead and do the lip too, but I'm gonna let that outside start to dry because that's my first coat. While I'm kind of, sitting here waiting for that to happen, I'm going to add a little bit more on the lip. Remember, I'm just kind of blobby. And then I'm also going to start on the inside as well. And remember, the inside, I can go a little bit further. And if some dribbles on the bottom, oh well. Okay, here we go. So I'm doing my coat. So on the inside, I'm going a little bit further. So like the outside, I stopped here. The inside, you can see I went like way farther. I went like closer to I went closer to here on the inside. And that's okay because it's on the inside. So if it runs, not even a big deal. On the outside, if it ran too far, bad news, right? Because don't forget, if your project sticks to the kiln shelf and it ruins the kiln shelf, you owe me $50. Actually, you owe the school $50 so they can buy me a new shelf. And then also, if it breaks off and you cut me, if you make me bleed, you will not get a good grade on that project, okay? Because you did not follow the directions, right? Because we definitely don't want these drips to go crazy far. Now, if one of your drips starts kind of getting kind of far and you're like, oh no, Missy told me no, just take your finger and kind of bloop. Just get some of that glaze off of it just to, make sure that it doesn't drip too far. So if it starts to go really far, just take your finger and kind of go right up and just take that extra glaze off so it won't drip too far. Now, if it gets farther than here with just the drip, if you brought all of this down, that would be too much. But if it's just a drip, if it comes farther than here, you're gonna have to really wipe, like actually wipe it off. Like show me and I'll help you, okay? Because I wanna make sure that it doesn't stick to the kiln shelf. Because they do become, like if I pull off something that's stuck to the kiln shelf, it will leave part of your project behind, so therefore your project's broken. And those pieces that are left over are literally razor sharp, like literally razor sharp. Like I did that one time and it was so sharp, I didn't even realize it cut me until I went to go take something else out of the kiln and I was like, what are those red drips down there? Where did those come from? And I went like this and I had blood literally dripping down my arm from this cut because a kid didn't wipe their bottom off of the glaze off the bottom of the pot. You gotta wipe the bottom of your pot. You can't have this go too far, even with drippy glazes when you're trying to drip. Inside, fine. Outside, to here, okay? So just kind of keep that in mind because really, you know, my goal in class, no blood, cool project. Those are kind of some major goals for us, right? Yeah, so now I gotta wait for this to dry. And then once it's all dry, I can layer with another coat of this. I could also layer with another glaze. Like I could, once this has 2 coats and it's dry, I could take some of like the oatmeal and dribble the oatmeal around the lip a couple times. Oatmeal tends to look really good with all this stuff with the drippiness and it kind of helps make things flow. So I highly recommend giving it a try, but make sure everything's dry in between your coats. Where you're layering glazes on the outside of a tumbler or a bowl needs to stay to like the top inch. I mean, if your project's an inch tall, don't do it on the outside. Okay, but like top inch at most. If the drips go too far down, just take your finger, bloop it up. And then you can always add one more layer onto the lip. And you could go a little bit further on the inside again too with another color, and that would look awesome. All right, thanks everybody. Happy glazing. Do some experimenting, see how it goes, write it down. And yeah, thanks everybody, have fun.